Good day, everyone. It's been a long time since I've been online, since I've been on YouTube. One of the reasons why I haven't been online for some time is because I've been commissioned to write a book about my lovely country and island, and it's a very important project for me. So I'll be continuing to write. I've been doing a lot of interviews. I've gone to the place where I'm to write the book about. It's about a very important national park in Sarawak. And perhaps I'll reveal that later on as we go through this talk. But most importantly, I have done that. But also at the same time, I am wanting to refurbish my online presence as well, because people don't know what this channel is about. And sometimes they also don't know what my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee is also about. Just let me express to you plainly that this channel is about whatever I like to talk about. Sometimes it's history, geography, important stuff, mental health issues, which I regard as very important as well, and insights that come from a combination of many disciplines together. So that's what this channel is mainly about. But at the same time, I've gotten rid of a lot of the AI slop, which I thought I could use for traffic in the first place. But I realized I'm just gathering traffic for the wrong kind of media, and the algorithms were haphazard. I've hired someone to help me out, and for the moment, I'm not posting so much on this. I'm not going to be that active because I've got a lot of work to do with regards to this book that needs to be finished very soon. So it's a rush project, but it's also going to be a detailed project, and I've got to put a lot of effort into it. At the same time, I'm not forgetting my channel. That's why I'm here right now, but you won't be seeing me that much. And at the same time, since I'm doing this refurbishment with someone in marketing who does marketing, because before I did it myself, and he will give me advice onto how to present here and there and everywhere. So, but mostly we are going to focus on getting people to my Patreon, because it's at Patreon where I have the goods to deliver. Okay. And sometimes they're not connected. They're connected in the sense that it's all one mind, but in terms of subject matter, they're not connected. You know how you have a reaction video, and somebody says, okay, if you want the full thing, go to Patreon and watch it there. That's something that's connected. For me, I could be talking about this here, and I don't talk much about my creative writing stuff, but yet the bulk of the stuff that is on Patreon is all about creative writing. So it's not connected, but it's the same mind. All right? And as a creative writer and teacher for a certain style of creative writing that is of my own, I would encourage you to visit my Patreon site. And if you want English lessons, I have English lessons available. But even there, I have stopped producing until there is going to be some takers, because right now nobody is becoming members or takers of that arena. So I need the help that I need to get, and I'm going to get help there. All right, that point being besides, today I wish to open a conversation about my beloved land. Am I talking about my country, Malaysia? Am I talking about my state, Sarawak? Or am I talking about the landmass itself, Borneo? Well, today I'd like to talk about my landmass, Borneo. Because my entire life, most of it anyway, has been concentrated on Borneo. Borneo has given me more than any other land has given me. It's given me life, it's nurtured me, and it's given me hope. I was born in Sarawak to a Scottish mother and a Malay father in Kuching, Sarawak. And I come from a very prestigious aristocratic background, but aristocracy means nothing nowadays. What's important in Sarawak is meritocracy, not aristocracy. So if you want to get by, you've got to get by with providing things for the country and for the nation and so forth. So I'm practically nobody in my own country. I'm not well known. I have taught English at various tuition centers. I have become a teacher throughout the world, and I've been an editor as well. I mainly specialize in history because that's where my degree is, that's where my honors is, and I'm going to apply that into the writing of this book that I'm doing now. If you want to know, it's called Memoirs of Mulu, and if you've heard of Mulu National Park, and Mulu as a cave area, very important national park in Sarawak, as well as all of Borneo. I just recently came back from there, and I was mesmerized by how wonderful, beautiful, and gorgeous that place is, and how it should be preserved and it is a natural wonder of the world. And I've been speaking to people from all over the world about it in the production of this book. So, and I'm going to be speaking to more people as we go by, and I'm just very happy about that. Now, Borneo to me is very important because when I had addiction issues, I also went to Sabah. I went to Kota Kinabalu, and I lived there for 6 years. It's a different part of Borneo to Sarawak, as a Sarawakian, and my closest friend is a Sabahan, So when we're out together, like we were in Mulu, and we were in Kalimantan Barat recently, because I visited for the very first time our neighbor to the south, West Kalimantan, with my friend, and there was my guide, my friend and I, and all three of us were Borneans of a different type. My guide was a native of West Kalimantan, I was a native of Sarawak to the north, and my friend was a native of Sabah. And all three of us brought our little quirky Borneanness with us, and I realized that the three places are very different because of their history and because of the society around them, In Sarawak, we have the Dayaks, we have the Melanaus, we have the Orang Ulu. We don't call all Dayaks by that. Dayak in Sarawak refers to what Brooke saw as Dayak. Sea Dayak, Land Dayak. Sea Dayak is Iban, Land Dayak is Bidayu. And then Orang Ulu are those of the upriver and central Bornean peoples, which in Kalimantan are called Dayak. So in Kalimantan, all the natives are called Dayak. Okay? And in Sabah, there's hardly any mention of Dayak. Instead, you have Dusun, Kedazan, Murut, Lunbawang, Lundaye. So the perspective is a lot different, but there is a Dayak element in Sabah too. It's just that it's expressed in Dusunik, Kadazan, Lundaye terms. And in some sense, maybe more of a native expression of the actual culture itself. So Sabahan is very specific. Indonesia is collective. And in Sarawak, we have it according to how the Raja saw it, grouped up in that manner. So, but all of us are native to Borneo. Okay? I grew up in Kuching. My first 20 years of my life, I lived in Kuching. All right, right up until I celebrated my 20th birthday in Singapore, but it was in Kuching I lived my life, We stayed in a place called number 6, Jalan Bukitan, in Jalan Uplands area in the south of Kuching. Government quarters where I was born there. I was born at Sarawak General Hospital, but then that was our house until 19 87. I was born in 81, so from 81 to 87 we had that. Used to always go to Singapore for holidays. So in Singapore, it was a holiday place. I used to say it's the pool place because we have no swimming pool in Kuching except KMC baths. So we had to go to Singapore to swim in the pool. And I love swimming in the pools in Singapore. I used to always associate Singapore with going to the pool and having a good time by the pool and all the pool activities. And as a little child, that's something I learned. But Singapore is, of course, not Borneo. And the outside world to me was always through Singapore. You want to go to UK? Through Singapore. You want to go to Australia? Through Singapore. You want to go anywhere in the world? Through Singapore. But up to within that 20-year period, in terms of international, I didn't go very far internationally. Only went to Singapore, went to Brunei, went to the UK. But even the UK was possibly just to, until 97, it was mostly Scotland. Then it became both, because my mum's from Glasgow. Then became became London in 97. Starting with 97, we did go to London, okay? So we did include England as well. Ireland was into 2000, so we didn't go there. We didn't go to anywhere in Europe, and yet today I've been to most countries in Europe. So throughout those first 20 years, not much international exposure except for Singapore, Scotland, Hong Kong, and New Zealand. That's about it for that period of time. We also went to Brunei in 97 as well, so Brunei too. So, and we walked to Indonesia in 99. Only walk to the Entikong market from Tubadu. So that was about it from international exposure. So mostly in Sarawak, mostly in Malaysia. Sarawak back then, of course, the idea of Borneo wasn't that ingrained. When I grew up, I thought I was growing up in Kuching. Okay, the word Kuching was the word. My country was Malaysia, and my city was Kuching. It took a long time for me to realize that I was living in Sarawak and that Kuching was the capital of Sarawak. Nobody said anything. Nobody told me about it. In school, everything was federal-centered in primary school and even in secondary school. I think I got a notion of that I was in Sarawak only, and Borneo. What was Borneo? I noticed T-shirts and shirts all saying Borneo, Sarawak, Borneo. What is this Sarawak? What is this Borneo? And I realized, no, we're on the island of Borneo. That's what my mum kept on saying. We're in the island of Borneo, but we're in the city of Kuching, in the state of Sarawak. And I had to get a map to see what all that looked like, because as a child I used to think of things as layers, okay, based on how planes were, So I never saw that the plane went down, but I always saw it go up. So I said Kuching, Singapore, KL. So it's a Kuching layer 1, Singapore layer 2, KL layer 3, Penang layer 4, UK layer 5, something like that. So you want to go from one place to the other, you've got to take a plane up to the next layer, land, and so forth. So that's the way I saw the world. I didn't see it in a form of geography, of maps and all that. My understanding was very limited until I got an atlas and saw it at the age of 11. So before 1992, my idea of the world was very, very primitive. And I used to have color schemes for it. Singapore is blue, Kuching is brown or red. Okay, it was blue in Singapore, Kuching was red, Singapore was blue, or Kuching was brown, Singapore was blue, KL was red. Again, Penang was maroon. In some sense, the whole of Malaysia was red because Malaysia Airlines had that stripe, that red stripe, as compared to Singapore Airlines, which was a blue stripe. So we saw Singapore's having that blue, KL having the red. And because we're under the Malaysia, we're under the red. I know it doesn't make much sense, but that's how I thought of the world. So within that time period, of course, I grew up. I went to kindergarten at St. Thomas's. St. Thomas's Kindergarten is located in Bishop Gate. Well, to the top of Bishop Gate. If you go to waterfront, Kuching, which is the main touristy area of Kuching City. Behind you have the hill that goes up to St. Thomas's Church. Well, within the church compound, towards the back of the church, used to be an orange shack. And that orange shack was my kindergarten school, which I studied there from 86 to 87. That was K1 and K2. And today, the shack is right on the road. So when you go from Plaza Merdeka to Wayang Street, you cross the back road that bypasses the back of the main bazaar. All right? You pretty much will be entering my classrooms. If you took a time machine, you would enter my classrooms and start killing a lot of children while you're doing that. Okay? Because those were classrooms back then, back in the 80s. So remember, don't use a time machine if it works on that road, because you might be involved in killing. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't think any children were killed by time machines coming into their classrooms. So yes, I was in the Orange Group under Mrs. Winnie. But before that, I had Mrs. Go as well as my teacher. And today, the noticeability of that school would be basically Bishop Gate itself. So if you go down Bishop Gate, I can remember walking down. The toilets were up there and the stairs. There's still stairs going down to Bishop Gate from where my school used to be. Okay, now they moved the school when my brother went to kindergarten. They moved it to across the road, and now it's considered quite a big school over on the other side for preschoolers, for kindergartners. So things have changed a bit. Yeah. My brother, he started his schooling over across the road where the kindergarten is today, which is with the primary and secondary schools of St. Thomas's. And my nephews all go to St. Thomas's school, so they have a picture of that would be their school life right now. So I started off as a Thomian, but ended up as a Josephian. Yeah. After I finished my kindergarten years, I moved on to SRK Jalan Ong Tiang Sui. And I stayed there from primary 1 all the way to primary 6. But I lived, and the irony is that in 1987, I moved from Jalan Bukitan, which is just down the road from Ong Tiang Sui School, to Jalan Bako, where I am since then, where this house is. This house has existed since 1987 till now. So that's 39 years of living in this big house here in Jalan Bako. Yeah. So this is my home. I could not imagine there being any other home. And with my mother having just recently passed away in May, I'm very glad to say to her that this was her home. She is the pioneer of this home. Because back when she was pregnant with my brother in 1986, she took an interior design course in America. It was a sort of like, it's a course where how do you say it? It's through the post. It's a course that you take through the post. All right. So she took that course, and she did the assignments, and she got the diploma for it. But most importantly is that throughout that time, she did the interior design of this house, and the beams, yeah, and all that. She did the interior design to look European. Yeah. So she did the interior design, and it manifested quite well. See, and that's her manifestation. And thing is, she lived here for the rest of her life. She lived here from 1987 to when she passed away in 26. So this year. So she lived her life in this house. And so did I until 2001. Okay, but before that, of course, you have my primary school years and then my secondary school years at St. Joseph's Secondary School. The irony, of course, is that I was a commuter, going to school every day, every morning, from Jalan Bako through the Satok Bridge, all the way to Third Mile, to where my school was. It couldn't be further. So my school was very far from my house. It would have been actually nearer had there been the bridges that have connected the city since then. But the next bridge would have happened in the year 1998, when we got the barrage and the causeway. The barrage and the causeway was a second crossing from Satok. So when it's having the barrage and causeway, you have the eastern side. You can get across from that side. And that was a very, a very interesting time. And then you have the toll bridge, and you have the Sungai Maung crossing as well. So there are many, many crossings into Petrajaya now. So we're very happy. And then, of course, you've got Daruhana as well, where you can walk across from town. So it makes going to town much easier, I'll just drive down to the Astana, to Pangkalan Sapi, which is about 5 minutes drive from here. And then from there, I walk into town and I'm in the city centre. What more could you say about that? It's very, very convenient to meet up with anyone in the city centre, because it's easier to park there and just walk across the road, And from there, maybe use public transport in the future, that sort of thing. Nevertheless, that's where we live today, and we've lived here since 1987. And then in 2000, and then I went to St. Joseph's and then did a lot of activities. I grew up really. I grew up in Kuching, and I've got here a book. This book was written by Brother Hilary. It's the history of school. And I would say that I started. Well, my dad was sent to the UK by the brothers. He had at night school, but I started pretty much in 1994. Yeah, so when these were my teachers. In afternoon session when I started. Hashtag to all of them. So yeah, and then from St. Joseph's School, I did all the way up to Form 6, Upper 6. I was the head of the group for science in KH in Form 1. That means the head of the group only. I was the monitor class when I was in primary 5 for KK. But then when I entered, and my dad was PTA president when I was in Hong Tian Sui. But in St. Joseph's, I kind of evolved into my own kind. And in Form 2, I was assistant class monitor. In Form 3, I was class monitor. In Form 4 and Form 5, I was a school prefect. And in Upper 6, Lower and Upper 6, I became the president of the Geography Society, because I did geography all the way up to Form 6. So, and I organized trips to the Silk Farm in Samatan, and a beach outing at the Abang Amir beach area in Samatan as well, during my time. I also participated in the school cultural performances in Club Kebudayaan, where I acted as an Iban warrior father whose daughter was marrying a crocodile. So, and that was one of our drama tari, or dance drama, at the cultural village. And because the school was late for me, and I wasn't late for school, but school was late for me. You know how you're late for school? But how can the school be late for you? Because I was staying in Damai Beach at the time, and the school had to prepare all its things before coming to cultural village. And by the time they reached cultural village, they were late. So they were late for me. So they did up my chawat loincloth in a very shoddy way. Luckily, I was wearing shorts underneath. But unfortunately, due to the movement and the dancing and all of the things that happened, It was really Clown 101. I lost my loincloth by the end of the show, and for the whole school that was a roar, laughter, and great shame. But still, it was all right. It was good. Then, of course, that was in the year 2000. And in 2001, after STPM, I went to the National University of Singapore and studied there. Now, in my first years, I didn't do much. In the second year, I was in the choir. And the third year, I was the assistant vice president of the National University of Singapore Historical Society, History Society. And I organized things like and I was also assistant director for the history seminar, and I organized things around that. I used to call junior colleges up and invite them over to participate in the history seminar in the year 2004. 2003, I think, 2003. 2004, 2005, I entered honors year. And during my honors year, we went on a trip to trace the Japanese occupation of Malaya. So we went up to Ipoh, we went to Slim River, we went to KL, we went to Mersing, we went to Muar, down to Singapore. It was a fun trip, and it was on the fall of Singapore, 1942, by the Japanese. So we were in one area where it was just a rubber plantation. They said that was the main highway in the whole of Malaya at one point in time, and now it's just a side road in a small rubber plantation. So it was quite interesting. So I lived in Singapore for NUS, and after NUS I continued on in Singapore. I fell into addiction issues starting in Singapore, and my spirituality helped me to overcome it over the years. A lot of prayer, a lot of fasting, a lot of psycho-spiritual work as well that needed to be done, especially with the psychiatrists and psychologists, because of perfectionism issues and autism, underlying autism, high-functioning autism. In 2005, I finished my studies in Singapore. Then I became a teacher at Choa Chu Kang Secondary School for 2 months. Couldn't stand it, left. And I spent 1 year, 2 months, 3 days unemployed, where I went to see a psychologist to work on my addiction issues. And eventually I went back to Singapore as an editor for Marshall Cavendish International Asia, which is an arm of Times Publishing. I wanted to publish my book, but in the end they took me as an editor, and I worked on a couple of books with them. I worked with them pretty much until May 2007. Okay, I remember the first day I joined them in Paya Lebar, Upper Paya Lebar Road. It was the day of the fire drill. And the day that I left was the day when there was downsizing and reorganization. Some interesting stories there. So yes, it was an interesting time. After that, living in Singapore, I went back to Kuching again, and then I went on to Australia, to University of Western Australia, to pursue my history honours, second honours, where I could do a thesis. And my thesis was on Rumah Batu, the ancestral home of my family. And it's now going to become a book as well, just as I'm writing the memoirs of Mulu. So there are going to be 2 books. The Al Khairat Yayasan Budaya Melayu Sarawak, which is a Malay foundation of Sarawak, is dealing with my thesis becoming a book. At the same time, I'm helping Dr. Robert Janit with the Mulu project, Memoirs of Mulu. So it's kind of like, doing 2 things at once. Yeah. Okay, so now before that, of course, I was in Australia from 2008, Perth, Western Australia, all the way to 2011, to the end of the year. And I did 2 things there: the honours history from 2008 to 2009, And from 2010 to 2011, I did a graduate diploma in education, where the major part was SNE, Society and Environment, Humanities. Okay, and in dealing with this Mulu book, I realized that my background in history and geography and the humanities is very important. And I taught in Australian schools at that time, Kelmscott Senior High School in my practicum, as well as Applecross Senior High School. And during my time at Applecross Senior High School, I went to Pinjarra, not prison, I went to Pinjarra. I went to Pinjarra, Pinjarra, which is a gold mining town in Western Australia, and I saw those huge trucks. The tires were the size of the bus that we were on. And I went through there, and I remember one of my colleagues coming up to me as I was sitting in the local bakery having my lunch, and she said, "Isn't it a lovely and beautiful day here?" I go, it was really, truly it was. It was cool, it was springtime, it was in September, and the flowers were out, it was a bit warmer, not so chilly, not so hot. A beautiful day, beautiful spring day in Australia. And she came up to me and she said, Isn't this a nice place to retire to? And I said, I had to agree with it. Yes, okay. It's a beautiful town, nice place to retire. I think I should retire here. I said, okay. Oh, doesn't it have a lovely name? I thought, I don't think you want to push it too much, because Pinjarra in Malay, Penjara, means prison. I just agreed with her. Yes, it's got a lovely name. I think I should retire in Pinjarra. I don't think you want to do that in Malaysia. So yes. So for those, I found that quite funny anyways. And I had a good time there. After that, I finished with my GDE in Australia, and I felt it's time to go home. So I went back home and I taught at English Language Centre, run by Valerie Mashman, and principal was Rosalind Yu. And I was with them for about 1 whole year, working at the ELC, teaching English. But that just made my addiction worse, okay? There were a lot of things that did not agree with me in teaching English at the school there. I think I was bound to do more things than just that. So I eventually realized that I came to Solace in Sabah. Solace Sabah, which is a rehab center for my addiction in Kota Kinabalu. And that started my KK era, the era of working in Kota Kinabalu. And let me tell you, I spent 1 entire year in rehab to make sure that I would learn as much as I could to get well from this addiction, to get free from it, to learn the skills that I needed to learn. And once I'd finished, I went to join Global English Centre and ISS as well to teach there. And then I continued on with being a content writer after I had relapsed and gone back to Solace, and eventually I had a personal life coach, a man called Hans from Chiang Mai, and he did a lot of life coaching with me and taught me about things. And I got a job as a content writer for the marketing team at Solace Sabah. And I worked in KK in 2016. It was at that time a good friend of mine brought me to Europe because he had property in Budapest, and I got to travel there too. But Sabah really did give me a lot of good things, and KK gave me a lot of experiences. Let me tell you one good day in KK, and that was after I left Solace. I was working with GEC, and then later on, in 2019, I was working with AMC College, doing part-time with them as well as with the ISS at Lika Square. So let me tell you about a day in that life. I would get up in the morning, go to the islands and snorkel. And in the afternoon, I would come back, get dressed, have lunch, go and teach at ISS, And in the evening, I watched a musical about a nun. So that was the life. That was just one particular day that I remembered about my time in KK. So you can snorkel in the morning, you see the puffer fish and all this sort of thing, corals. afternoon, teach, evening, enjoy the show. And that's what happened to me. And at AMC College, I was able to create my own curriculum, teaching students English in such a fun way. And before that, of course, in GEC, I was teaching during what I call the Arab Spring of 2018, because there were over 70 Arab students came to the center, and I taught people from Arabia and Korea and around the world as well there. All of these things are very interesting. And I also taught school inspectors at the education office in Tuaran, where I had to drive every day to go there. But after that, I would enjoy myself at the Shangri-La lounge, at Rasaria, where they would have lovely food and drink there. So I'd enjoy myself there, and I taught the officers English. Some of them were my own friend's ex-principal, was one of my students. So it was quite an interesting class, where your own students were all people who had been in education for many, many years. And eventually I did full-time at AMC College, but COVID came about, and that was later let go, and eventually I had to leave KK during that time for Kuching. And I've been in Kuching for 6 years since then. I had online courses with autism intervention with friends and all that, and now doing this Memoirs of Mulu, where I just recently came to Mulu. And this year also, to spread my knowledge of Borneo, I went to Kalimantan Barat with my friend from Sabah, as I mentioned. And Indonesian Borneo is quite different from Malaysian Borneo. The towns are located straight along the road, so much so that there is no countryside along the way. From the border all the way to Pontianak, it's like as if there are shops everywhere. Villages, towns, everything all mixed up. And that you could even have a coffee shop, or an Indomart in the middle of nowhere, which is quite exotic and quite interesting. So I got to Pontianak and I went to Singkawang as well. I really enjoyed myself there, especially with food. It's very cheap in that area. So I love Borneo. Borneo is my homeland. Borneo is my hometown. I've been to the regions of Kalimantan Barat. I've been to Sarawak. I live in Sarawak. I'm from Sarawak. There's Brunei, and there's also Sabah. So I've been to Sabah, Brunei, Sarawak, and Kalimantan Barat. I hope to visit the rest of my land. I'm not talking about Malaysia. I've been to all the states in West Malaysia anyway. But I'm talking about here in Borneo. It's lovely. Please come to Borneo and find out more about it, and especially to Mulu National Park, and learn the serenity and the gorgeousness and uncover the history and the mystery of the wonderful countryside that we have here today. All right. So in all that, I wish you all the best. God bless, and thanks for listening.